start today. Who makes the Melbourne Cup today?
Who makes the Melbourne Cup? Well, it's complicated.
I'm Mark and I make the Melbourne Cup.
I'm Ian and I make the Melbourne Cup.
I'm Amanda and I make the Melbourne Cup.
My name's Joe and I make the Melbourne Cup.
Miners, refiners, chemists, metal workers, jewellers.
Us, project managers, our bosses, their bosses, the VRC, Victoria Racing Club.
So yeah, probably dozens of people you need to make the Melbourne Cup.
Why?
Because it's hard. Most trophies these days are made by machines, but the Melbourne Cup is still pretty much made the same way it was 100 years ago, by hand.
The cup's made by hand, but it has to be made perfectly. Exactly the right weight, exactly the right dimensions, within 1/10 of a millimetre.
So there's a bit of pressure. There's the VRC, there's 150 years, over 150 years of tradition.
There's over $200,000 worth of gold.
And there's millions of people watching.
There's not just one Melbourne Cup either. There's actually 58 for the trainer, the jockey, the scrapper, the breeder, the starters, and the Melbourne Cup Tour.
And this year's very special. It's the 100th anniversary of the Cup's design.
Before World War I, the trophies came from England in all different shapes and sizes. But when the war disrupted shipping, local jewellers had to create their own. So they designed what's called a loving cup with 3 handles, one each for the owner, the trainer, and the jockey. And it was just so perfect that it's become a tradition to make it the same way every year for 100 years.
So that's a century of tradition we have to live up to. No pressure.
So where do you start?
Where do you start? Well, first, you've got to get us some gold.
So the Melbourne Cup starts out here in these rocks. So we're geologists and we work out where the highest concentration of gold is. Then the blasting crew go to that spot and drill explosives down into the rock.
And then normally our guys go up to look out, set up their detonator and press the button. But today Gemma's going to do it.
Firing now.
So after the blast, you've basically got rubble. The diggers put that rubble into trucks, the trucks carry the rubble up the ramps, and then they put it in the crusher.
So the crusher gets the rocks down from about this big down to this big. They then go into the processing plant where the mill full of steel balls smashes the rock until it's powder, literally like talcum powder. That goes into the gravity circuit where the rock dust stays up high and the gold and other metals sink down because they're heavier. Those metals get melted and then poured into casts to make bars that we call doré bars. They're ugly looking things, but they're worth millions.
And that's it. Now Gemma will take those doré bars back to Sydney and turn them into the Melbourne Cup.
The doré bars aren't much good to us yet because the gold in them is mixed with silver and other metals. So we have to refine them to separate out the gold. First it goes through a smelting process that purifies it some of the way, and then it goes into a bath that purifies it again to 99.99%. Then you've got to test it.
I'm Pravinder and I test the gold to see how pure it is, and if it's not 4 nines, that's 99.99% pure, it has to be refined again.
So we end up with 24 karat gold or 99.99% pure gold. But that's too soft to make a cup. So we have to add other metals, secret ingredients to make it 18 karat, and that's when it goes to Ben.
So I get these blocks of gold and I have to roll them down into thin sheets. Sometimes it can get a bit dicey because the biggest sheet needs to be 280 millimetres wide and our rollers are only 290 mils wide. So we've only got 5 millimetres clearance either side to get this $50,000 sheet through those rollers. When it's finished, I have to check it's all exactly perfect, so it comes together right for the silversmiths down the road.
Spinning trophies is rare these days, and for good reason. It's difficult. There aren't many spinners left.
So after all this work, mining, refining, rolling, it comes down to this one guy, the spinner. And his name is Sparrow.
I'm Sparrow King. I've been spinning since before you were born, I reckon. 30 to 40 years on and off. This is the hardest trophy I've had to spin, and the most important. It's a Melbourne Cup, mate. I don't want to bugger it up.
So there's a piece of wood called a chuck spinning on a lathe, and Sparrow's got to force sheets of gold to bend and take the shape of that chuck.
The thing about spinning, mate, is the gold gets harder and harder and harder as you work it. You've got to keep the gold soft by annealing it. That's heating it up. Of course, if you don't anneal it, the metal will get hard and crack.
If a sheet cracks, it's ruined. We have to melt it down and start over from scratch.
You just buggered up nearly 50 grand's worth of gold.
So have you ever cracked one?
Yeah.
So once you've spun the cup, you're almost out of the woods. You need to make the handles, you need to polish it. Then you've got to do the engraving of the bowl and make the base. Now you've got all the pieces, you've just got to put them together right.
This is the first time I've assembled the cup myself. I think I did it right.
Then the cup must be hand-delivered to Melbourne, to the VRC, where Joe McGrath will inspect every inch of it, while we wait outside and pray. If Joe gives us the all clear, we can celebrate.
Congratulations everyone. I know it hasn't been easy, but it's been absolutely worth it. Look at that. You made the Melbourne Cup. Guys, we made the Melbourne Cup.
How good is that? I gotta show me mum.
Now the journey's not over, because before Lexus Melbourne Cup Day, this cup will actually travel across the globe to communities far and wide to experience the magic of the Lexus Melbourne Cup.
Bloody heavy.
What do you reckon, Harry?
It's heavy.
Don't break it, whatever you do.
Oh mate, it's special, isn't it? Isn't that awesome?
I've always been a winner. This is magic.
Getting to hold the Melbourne Cup, 100-year anniversary, pretty amazing.
I'm Braden and I made the Melbourne Cup.
My name's Steve and I made the Melbourne Cup.
My name's Gemma and I made the Melbourne Cup.
I'm Alex and I made the Melbourne Cup.
All right, so that's one down, 58 to go.